Well, welcome everyone to the Break Thru U podcast. I am super excited to have a very special guest with us this evening, Bill Wilson, aka Mr. Murfreesboro.
Hey,
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, listen up while we introduce to you the one and the only Bill Wilson,
hey.
Mr. Murfreesboro. And the crowd goes wild. Yeah, so thank
Thanks
you
for
so
having me.
much. Yes, I'm crazy excited to be able to get into this conversation in regards to Murfreesboro and
Yeah,
no none other than the expert himself, you, Mr. Murfreesboro. That and the question is probably a lot of people are asking themselves is how did we get here? Like Murfreesboro, you see it in the news. It's a desired destination, place
yeah.
to move, to relocate. And but first of all, with all of that, thank you for accepting my invitation to come on.
Yes, man. I'm very grateful. I love Murfreesboro. I love people. I think one of my monikers has been relics, real estate, relationships, and I just love people. And what I found through my own life of 56 years, March 2nd is my birthday. If you want to put that in your calendar, no, I'm just kidding.
Definitely.
Uh, is that everybody has a story to tell, whether you're under a bridge or if you live in the White House or if you live in $1 million home or if you don't have a home. Everybody has a story of how they got there. And not everybody, we're all a decision away from being the man on the street or the woman on the street or something bad happening. It's typically Um, it could be, I always say there's three things in life that affect everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican or whatever, if you're a man or woman, black or white, gay or straight. That's finances, romances, and health. And what I mean by that, the finances is there's been times in my own life where I didn't have a job. And so that's finances. There's been times when I didn't have a bank account. And I think all of us in general, if you're able to work, that's an honor, or it's a privilege. It's an opportunity that the good Lord gives us to work, to be able to work, unless you're independently wealthy and you don't have to work, say if a Kennedy or a Vanderbilt or whatever. But for the most part, everybody's got to get up, go to work, whether it's at Nissan or government, the VA, but romances, and I compare that to relationships. And I always think about, well, how's my relationship with the Lord? How's my relationship with a significant other? How's my relationship with my son? How's my relationship with other people? How's my relationship with the gentleman that just pulled out in front of me at Walmart and I want to go choke him? But, and then the third thing is health, and especially health these last 3 or 4 years with COVID, maybe the last two to 3 years. People, you know, if I get a phone call tonight that something bad's happened to a loved one, it's not going to matter if I'm a Democrat or a Republican, how much money's in the bank or how smart I am. It's going to be about, my relationship with that person and just getting through hard times. And I think we all go through hard times. At one point in our life, we go through some sort of hard times. I know personally I have, but yeah, Murfreesboro, there was original Mr. Murfreesboro. It's not me. I'll give you a little history about Mr. Murfreesboro. There was a gentleman by the name of Tommy Martin, and you may know Hunter McFarland or Dr. Bryn Martin. He's a history professor at MTSU. We all grew up together. Well, their grandfather was Tommy Martin, and he was about 5'9", He probably weighed about 300 pounds. He was a bellow guy. I mean, he was like Santa Claus without the beard. Just a jolly good old fellow. And every time you saw Tommy, he would say, I love you. He would say, Jesus loves you, and so do I. He was known for writing letters to people. Like if you were in the newspaper, Josh, we cut it out, laminate it, mail it to you. Not like how, social media is, you just click a button and there you are. He was old school, but he helped recruit. And if it was your birthday, he'd write you a handwritten note, happy birthday. But he got the name Mr. Murfreesboro because he was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and he was known for recruiting companies here. A lot of people don't realize that he helped bring State Farm here, which is no longer here, I don't think, the regional office. He brought General Electric here, Chromalox. He helped bring Nissan here. So Murfreesboro and Rutherford County wouldn't look the way it is, the progressive as it is, without people like the original Mr. Murfreesboro, Tommy Martin. And when I started this, I took Hunter to lunch. I said, Hunter, thanks for going to lunch with me. And we went over to the tasty table, and I was like, man, I've got this idea of starting a page called Mr. Murfreesboro, but I'm not going to do it unless the family says it's okay. And he says, I think that'll be good, because Tommy and my grandfather, Bill Wilson, he was a sheriff and road superintendent, he was in politics growing up, and they were good friends. And Hunter says, I think it's a great idea. So that's when it started in March of 2015. And I never thought it would be like it is today, a radio show, podcast, close to, include Instagram, close to 50,000 followers. It's been a blessing. It's also can be a flip side when, there's a fire going on across town. I'll get text, calls saying, hey, Mr. Murfreesboro, you're supposed to know everything. What's burning down over here? So I don't know everything. I don't know everything about Murfreesboro. And there's a lot of people who have lived here, and their families have lived here many more generations than mine.
So what have you continued from the original Mr. Murfreesboro today? I know you're probably not writing birthday cards or...
I just try to be nice to people, regardless of who they are, what they look like, if they're homeless, or, I talk to, it doesn't matter who they are. Like I said, everybody's got a story, and everybody's a child of God. So the way I look at it, it's that golden rule. You want to be treated the way, treat people the way you want to be treated.
Exactly.
So, you know what I mean? And I think this world's kind of gotten crazy, and it's for a lot of reasons, because it's a quick fix. It's a hedonistic society. It's pleasure seeking. People want to feel good all the time. I got to, if I want to feel good. How much money to have in my bank account, material things. I've been there. I've done that. And truly, it's about relationships. That's what life is to me.
Yeah, definitely. So Murfreesboro, my wife and I, we moved here about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
A little over 4 years ago. And we never thought that we would be in Murfreesboro. And it's funny because we thought, oh yeah, Murfreesboro is 30 minutes away. That's a long time. Whole nother city. And here we are in Murfreesboro. It's like we do everything in Murfreesboro.
Right.
And it's a growing city, but yet it still has that small town feel,
which is getting away from in some ways.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think that a lot of people that are moving here are wanting that, but don't understand that the more people that move here, the more it's going to change the culture and what Murfreesboro is.
Well, it's again, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. There was only 30,000 people that lived here, and I could go around the square and I knew everybody. I knew everybody. And I mean, I know a lot of people, but today we are a melting pot of a hodgepodge of all sorts of people. You got people moving here from California. You got people that move here, Illinois. I've had people from Iowa. I mean, from every spectrum there is. I've had people move to Florida and then move back from Florida.
Yeah.
And I will say this, for the first time, I've noticed people moving from Murfreesboro out because they don't like the traffic. The people that complain about the traffic and stuff, really the only ones that can complain are your old timers. Because
Yeah.
what people don't realize, the people that have moved here, they've helped create traffic, right? Sorry, my Mickey Mouse.
Exactly.
But so be it. I'd rather be progressive than be something like the way it's been up north, like Detroit and other cities that are not economic. I mean, we
Yeah,
haven't made, we have really haven't made. Don't know how well we haven't made here in Murfreesboro.
that is true.
In Middle
You know,
Tennessee.
I was took my son to take his permit test yesterday, and he failed by 3. So we're like, you know what? We'll just come back tomorrow.
Right.
So we went in there this morning, sat down for about 30, 40 minutes. And yesterday and today, all I heard was, yes, I'm here for a new driver's license. I'm relocating from different states. And it was, that's all I heard. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And the workers that are helping, they were already like, you're here from another state? Yes. Okay. And I'm like, wow, there's so many people. I know, was it a couple years ago, and may even still be now, that they said it was 100 people a day moving to Tennessee.
There's over 100. Yeah, there's over 100 people a day. Let me tell you why people love Murfreesboro and this area. And this is my chamber plug. If you take a pin, Murfreesboro is the exact center of Tennessee. Go out Old Lascassas Highway, and there's an obelisk. There's a monument there. I sit on the board for the Rutherford County Historical Society, and I love history. I've always loved history. But people don't realize, Middle Tennessee, Murfreesboro is the center. If you take a pin on a map and make a dot here in Murfreesboro, and then go out 500 miles and draw a circle, you're within a day's drive of 75% of the U.S. population. You're a day's drive to the Gulf Coast. Not even that long, a day's drive to the East Coast. If you're going north or if you're going through Florida, up north to Canada, you've got to come either through Murfreesboro or around Murfreesboro, because we have 3 interstate systems here. 840 connects 24, 40, 65. And I can remember when there was no interstate here. So the way you would go to Florida, or if the way you went up north, say if you're going to Florida in 1976, or maybe even 73, something like that, because I think the interstate was put in around 72 to 74, something like that. You would go down 231 South Church Street, through Shelbyville, through Fayetteville, through Huntsville, through Birmingham, through Montgomery, down towards Pensacola. Or you could go Manchester Highway, which is Broad Street, and take that east through Beech Grove, through Manchester, through Chattanooga, onto Atlanta, through down the other side of Florida. A lot of people don't realize the Dixie Highway ran right down the middle of Murfreesboro, where College Street is Old Nashville Highway. You know where that little roundabout is? Right off of Broad Street. There's a little roundabout, that light. That
Oh
was
yeah.
the Dixie Highway, which ran up College Street right next to Marinas, Miller and Lowry, Pinnacle Bank, Center for the Arts. That was your the Dixie Highway. The highway ran right through Murfreesboro. I mean, through downtown. That's pretty wild to think about. And do you know when the interstate in the 70s, when 24 finally opened, the downtown businesses did not want any interchanges, no exits to come in downtown. And you know why? They thought it was going to take business away from downtown. And that's why they didn't want interchanges. You know, so we've grown over the years, and it's one of the big reasons is mobility. It's easy to get here. It's easy to get here. We have great schools. The education system. Luckily, I don't know if it's luckily. I was educated in public schools and private schools. Don't ask me why, but I was educated in public schools and private schools. I went to the Methodist Church kindergarten, the one that was torn. Well, the part of it was torn down. It was Mid-South Bank. Then went to campus school. Went to Central Middle School. Went to Middle Tennessee Christian School. Went to Riverdale, and then graduated from MTSU with a poli-sci degree. So, and I can remember when MTSU only had 9 or 10,000 students. And that wasn't too long. I mean, that was in the 80s or, early 80s, something like that. It's around 10,000. Now I think it's the undergraduate, it's the largest. I think it's even bigger than UT Knoxville. It's gotten up to about 25,000 3 or 4 years ago, and I think it's gone down a little bit. But
That's what I heard.
Yeah, the impact that MTSU's had.
Even their sports teams, like they're nationally ranked. Like they've come a long way.
Yeah, they have a great, Murphy Center was over at MTSU was the place to go to concerts. I saw Elvis there in 1975. I saw U2. I mean, I could go down the list all about wrestling matches.
There's still a lot that happens in Murfreesboro. Like, I know they had, we went to a boxing event here at one of the hotels.
Embassy Suite. That was,
yes.
Yeah. Matthew Young put that on. TriStar Boxing.
Yes, that was pretty incredible.
Yeah. Embassy Suites. And that's that's like a little convention center. That's why it came here, was to host business events and I guess some recreation events too. But people don't realize that, where the, say if you're eating at Jonathan's or you're shopping at Dick's or over there at the Avenue, in December 30th of 1862, Murfreesboro was like one of the top 10 this side of the Mississippi as far as populated cities for about 3 days, because between the Union and Confederate forces, there was like 80,000 troops. Murfreesboro at that time was only about 3,500 people. So you'd wake up and there's people camped, the Union had somewhere around 35,000 maybe, and the Confederates had about the same amount, but it was like somewhere between 70 and 80,000. Can you imagine seeing all those tents? And I mean, we're eating a steak. The Battle of Murfreesboro for 3 days went on. It was the 7th bloodiest battle in our history, in the Civil War history, the 7th bloodiest battle, with nearly 24,000 casualties. There was, and a lot of people didn't die during the battle. They take a bullet, they'd be out, surgeons bring them in, or bring them into the tent or the hospital. There are many, if there was homes around Murfreesboro during that time, you can rest assured at one point there were probably a hospital, or there was a wounded soldier that walked up on the back wanting food or water or something. But it was a bloody, they say the river ran red. It was so bloody. It's pretty wild when you think about it. You're driving around. I go to New Vision Baptist Church, and where
Yep.
go to church, man, they're all over there. They were all over the place.
There's so much rich history here in Murfreesboro. My wife and I, we toured the mansion here in Murfreesboro. Yes. And then we toured, there's a little village.
Cannonsburg.
Yes. And my wife and I, we'll drive to like Atlanta, or we'll take road trips, and for us, we'll see a sign, historic old monument or something, and we pull off and we'll go and hunt it down, and we'll go visit. Yeah, we love to do that, and we give ourselves time to do that. And it's just here in Murfreesboro, I don't think a lot of people realize how much there is to do that's free when it comes to the history of the United States, and especially like the Civil War, or even the Trail of Tears,
Right down Memorial.
Yeah.
Andrew Jackson said took all the Native Americans, pushed them all out to Oklahoma.
Yep.
And there was thousands that died, mainly women and children. They went down Memorial. There are some markers down through there, right, I think by the VA. But yeah, meaning, it was during winter time, and they famine. Yeah, that was a bad time.
Yeah. Bad time. This is I love history as well. And I think that, like, I want to preserve history.
Sure.
Because when you erase history, you erase a lot of your identity, good or bad.
Right.
And so I think history reminds us of how we need to be in the future.
And don't make the same mistakes. Some of it.
Exactly.
Don't make the same mistakes.
And I love Murfreesboro because there's so much of that here. And especially even the tombstones. 4th of July, my wife and I and our daughter, we walked there at the grave site, and it's very solemn.
Was it Evergreen, or was it on Vine Street? Which one were you? Was it?
What?
Is it on Greenland Drive, or was it on Vine Street, the old city cemetery?
This one is the military.
On Vine Street. And do you know Murfreesboro was the state capital for about 7 or 8 years in the 1820s and 1830s? And they met at a Presbyterian church on Vine Street, and part of the foundation is still there inside the old city cemetery next to a taxi service business.
I wonder why they switched it.
They moved it to Nashville. It was over $100. And it was because, Stones River, there's sometimes in Stones River, it may be 3 feet deep. You couldn't get commerce down Stones River. The Cumberland River dumps into the Ohio River, which dumps into the Mississippi. Back then, if you had a steamboat, or if you're trying to bring goods and services in, you couldn't get it down Stones River. But you could get it down the Cumberland. And that's one of the reasons why Nashville became the state capital. Plus, people didn't want to ride their buggy all the way to Murfreesboro. But if you think about it, it's the middle of Tennessee.
Exactly.
But I do get it over the fact that you couldn't we were talking about mobility earlier. The state capital, you have to be able to get there easy. And that's the thing about back then, the way they traveled was either stagecoach or a horse or by boat. The boat, the rivers were our superhighways, and they didn't come into existence until 1952 or whenever Eisenhower started that in the 50s. The great interstate system.
Yep. I was actually researching that a couple of months ago. It's crazy. My mind, I'll get a thought in my mind and I go on YouTube and I go on online and I just start researching. It was like, how did the road system begin? And started digging into it.
Right.
That was incredible how that began.
Well, the oldest roads here in Rutherford, one of them is Jefferson Pike. Have you been down Jefferson Pike?
Yes.
And go out to Walter Hill Memorial,
Mm-hmm.
take a left in that road. I mean, it's narrow, but there's no shoulders. In other words, it was a real
it's
narrow
just a
road.
drop.
That's where all your wagons and that's the way they used to go to Nashville. That's the way they traveled from the northern part of the county. That's the way they would go through Smyrna and on to Nashville, rode their horses and coach.
Seems like the infrastructure now, it's like we're always trying to, Murfreesboro's trying to play catch up because so many people are moving here. And the infrastructure, I guess it's a plus and a negative. It's good that people are moving here, but it's like, do you feel like the infrastructure is behind?
Well, that's the thing is, and I'm not going to get into politics, but the federal government, I've got friends who, well, your wife's on the school board. Friends are city councilmen, county commissioners, state reps, like Shane Reeves. And we're talking about roads and Mayor McFarland, Mayor Joe Carr. But when you talk about widening roads, like Salem Highway, Jefferson Pike, people think, oh, that's a county. No, it's a state road. The state has to be involved in it. If it's a federal highway, the I-24 is federal. You can't tell the federal government what to do. You can't really tell what the state government to do. The only thing we can do as locals is kinda tell the county commissioners or whatever, tell the city council how we feel, and they're supposed to vote the way we say. But I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but when you need, everybody was complaining about Salem Highway because it was taking forever, it seemed like. And if you do the math, I don't think it took as long as what we think, our perception. Nobody likes to wait. I don't know anybody who likes to wait.
That is the truth.
Unless you're going to die, then you would say, let's put it off a little bit. Even though I'm ready to meet my maker, let's just put it off. I've got things I got to do. But we're blessed in the fact that great schools and great churches or places you want to worship, you've got the freedom to do that. Freedom to shop where you want to, eat where you want to. We just came out of Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for that we don't have airplanes flying overhead like in the Ukraine over there. So as a burrowing, I don't know if you ever heard that term, burrowing.
A couple of times.
Burrowing. We just have a lot to be thankful. I used to call Murfreesboro, I still do, like a Norman Rockwell town. Have you ever seen a painting of Norman Rockwell? What type of paintings do you do? Old, traditional city scenes. We have a courthouse, one of the only, I think there's 3 or 4 still standing from the Civil War times. I think it was built in 1859. Still has some bullet holes in it. You'd have to go up there. I've been up in the cupola where the clock is. But a lot of people don't realize that Judy Garland's family was from here. Her grandparent, you know, the Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of
Lord
Oz here.
Gum community, that was her grandparents out Manchester Highway. She supposedly came here during the summers and would spend time here with her grandparents. The Gums. Douglas MacArthur, the famous general, who was ready to, during the Korean War, he was ready to go into China. Okay. Truman called him back, said, nope, we're not going in. You can, this is all public record. He was going to go in and take care, you know, not take care of business, but he was going to go in there and I guess he was going to take care of business, but Truman said, nope, get back here. So he brought him back, and then Jean Faircloth, who he was married to, was from Murfreesboro. And he promised that he would come to visit her hometown. And in it was either 50 or 51. I've got pictures of this on Mr. Murfreesboro, and you can see it on other sites. He visited Murfreesboro. He flew into the Seward Air Force Base, and he had a Rolls Royce, picked him up, brought him up to the square. He gave a speech at the James K. Polk Hotel where SunTrust Bank is today. Or he came up there and talked. He went around the square, and my old family church, where my mother and my great grandmother, she was a charter member of Central Christian Church at the corner of Manny and Main. It goes back from throughout 1908. It broke off from East Main Church of Christ because of music and women. Church of Christ believe, and I've got a lot of friends and relatives who are Church of Christ, but no music, and women need to kind of not to keep their mouth shut, but take care of the children, do that. You don't need to be in the pulpit for sure. I'm not saying that that's kind of what they did, but that's how Central Christian Church got started. Disciples of Christ, which were Campbellites, Alexander Campbell and Barton Stone, that's Church of Christ. But they broke off there and started Central Christian, which has a gold dome. It looks like a mosque, but it's got a gold dome on it. Well, MacArthur and little Doug, his son, and Jean are riding in the back of that, and I got pictures of this, in that Rolls Royce. It breaks down in front of Central Christian Church, and he's teed. The general he was known for, had a little temper. Mm-hmm. But people from the side came out and pushed that Rolls Royce down Main Street over to MTSU. I think that's pretty wild. People go, who cares? But how many other towns had Douglas MacArthur have a Rolls Royce that broke down in front of their family church?
And those cars are probably all metal.
Dude, they're heavy. Yeah, they're 3,000 pounds or so. I mean, Rolls Royces are very heavy cars. Yes, I've driven them. I've ridden in them. But that's
what would you say? What would you say are some of the oldest businesses, establishments that are maybe still in operation?
The City Cafe's over 100 years old.
We have breakfast there.
Yeah, City Cafe. If you go downtown, like Dominico's, Murphy started. He was a football quarterback at MTSU, and his family. He came from California. And his grandparents had a Dominico's out in California. That's how they got started. But if you go to the corner there, facing West Main, look down. You can see it's called a stone, and I think it says 1860 something. When you see that, that tells you how old that building is, more than likely. The cornerstone is what I was looking for. But people don't realize in the 1870s, 1880s, Murfreesboro, up on the square was a bunch of saloons, a lot of saloons, and they had several fires. You can go into the basement of some of these. You can ask, I think Michael Busey, some different ones. Go down the basement, you can still see the charred where they had fires. I don't know how they got started, but yeah, I mean, the center, Murfreesboro was named after Hardy Murphy. There's an attorney in town, he's a good friend of mine, Brick Murphy. His great, and maybe four greats was Hardy Murphy. That'd be a good one for you to have on, who Murfreesboro is named after. But William Lytle gave the 60 acres, which started at the courthouse. There were 60 acres, it's squared from the courthouse out. I've got a plat of it, a copy of it, but that's where he donated the land, and then they named it after Hardy Murphy. There was a guy named
That's
Charles.
the beginning of Murfreesboro.
Yeah, the beginning.
Wow.
Chartered in I think that it was 1811 or 1817. But there was a guy named Charles Reedy. Reedaville, you know where Reedaville is? That's named after him. He had a house at the corner of East Main and North Church, right next door to Shacklett's. He had a huge wedding during the Civil War. Supposedly, and there was a Confederate general named Leonidas Polk, and he preached. It was John Hunt Morgan married Charles Reedy's daughter. He would be killed later on up near Knoxville. Somebody, I think, shot him in the back. He was known for doing raids on the Union, the supply line, stuff like that. But Charles Reedy had a daughter, and John Hunt Morgan married him. But it was political back then. But Charles Reedy, for some reason, Reedy and I think Murphy or there's some of the higher ups, they didn't get along. So Reedy bought some land out where Reedaville is, and the house still stands. It's called Four Corners. If you go down Old Woodbury Highway, it sits to the right. It was built in 1820s, 1830s. And what they did with him, they put the Rutherford Cannon County line right down the middle of his house. So he'd have to pay taxes on both.
Wow.
And that goes back to the early 1800s. And it's documented. I think Barry Lamb's got a book, and maybe Bill Jakes. But that's just a part of the history. I mean, Murfreesboro is also known for the gangsters coming through town, like Al Capone. I think it's John Dillinger, maybe Pretty Boy Floyd. But think about it, from Miami to Chicago. Picture that in your mind. Chicago's north. Miami's down at the tip of the states, well, close to the Keys, but about the halfway point was Chattanooga, Murfreesboro. Those gangs, Al Capone did his business in Chicago. He relaxed in Miami. There's many pictures of him with a cigar, He actually died. He had venereal disease. They say he went nuts, crazy. But anyway, he would stop in Murfreesboro, some houses, some people said he ate at the City Cafe, or they would bring food to him on his way passing through, because Murfreesboro was a halfway point. If you ever go to Swanee or Mont Eagle, there's a place called High Point. I highly recommend that restaurant. Al Capone had that house built for his mistress, and it still stands today. When you walk in there, there's a little picture of Al, and there's trap doors there, and there's places for Tommy guns to get, when the cops came or other gangsters, whatever, he had trap doors, and he had a way to get out real quick. That house still stands, but he built that for his mistress. It's called High Point. They have some of the best steaks in the food. They bring it from the farm to the table. From the area around it, it's delicious.
So coming up, how did the radio station come about?
With the show?
Mr. Murfreesboro.
Well, here's what happened. I'd never done radio in my life. Never even thought about it. There's a gentleman by the name of Edwin Lee Raymer. He had a radio show on Sunday nights. It was like from 8 to 10. I mean, that's saying like Sunday night on the radio. I have the face for radio, but WGNS has been really good to me. They've been, Barton, Scott Walker. The oldest gig in town, I think 75, 76 years, getting close to 80, I guess. But and they'll be moving soon because the city's buying all that. Ed, I was a guest as Mr. Murfreesboro on his show. And he goes, "Hey, man, what do you think about being my co-host?" And I got to thinking, I said, well, I don't have anything else going on Sunday night. I mean, I go to church in the mornings. And so I was kind of responsible for getting all the guests on. And I've had, you name it, I interviewed, speakers of the House, people running for governor, both parties, entertainers, Grammy Award winners, murderers, people who had murdered people, and people. I had one of the wildest shows was a good, and these people are all friends of mine. I had the murderer sitting there, the guy that he murdered's son sitting here, and then the murderer's preacher right over here. And this happened in Murfreesboro. A gentleman got murdered. It was in the 1980s. This guy that murdered him, he goes to prison. He did about 30 something years, but the Holy Spirit came over him and he was asking for forgiveness. He wanted to be forgiven. So he started writing letters to my friend Philip. There's a book out, it's called Forgiveness in the First Degree. And I want you to think about this. I'm supposed to be making a movie about it. The Holy Spirit comes over this guy and he starts writing letters to Philip and Philip's mom, the widow of the man that Ronnie murdered. Well, Philip and his mom are touched by this. They're touched by the Holy Spirit too. Because it's not normal to forgive somebody who murdered your dad or murdered your wife or your child, whatever. So they go to the prison and they embrace and forgive him. That's who you need to have on the show. They embrace him, forgive him, go to the probation to help get him out. He gets out of prison. They write a book together. They came to church and gave their testimony in front of people. Well, I killed his father. And it was all about forgiveness, because forgiveness is not really up to us. It's what the Lord would have us do. So it was kind of, it caught me, man. But I interviewed them all together. Yeah, the book's called Forgiveness in the First Degree. But
that's probably one of the most interesting interviews you conducted.
Oh, yeah, I've interviewed a guy that was a white supremacist who found the Lord. Interviewed, I'm trying to think. I've interviewed all sorts of people, man, all walks of life. Everybody's got a story. Everybody. And
so when you're walking down the street, people just come walk up to you.
They go, "Hey, Mr. Murphy." I've had people want my autograph, but I'm like, no, you don't. Or have their picture made, because they've called me the king of selfie. When all the white supremacists were coming down here to do that march. Remember that? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I went down. I was in the middle of it, going live. People are like, "You idiot." Everybody's got a story.
Yeah.
That, I'm a peaceful person. I think if you go around, for the most part, society as a whole has been kind of crazy, and you can blame both sides. You can blame, we're human, okay? None of us are perfect. There's only one. We only know there's one perfect. That was Jesus.
Even when I misspell your last name.
My last name?
Even when I misspell your last name.
Wilson? Bill Wilson?
No, when I misspelled your last name.
Oh, Will Don. I'm the Will Don. Yeah, thanks for correcting that, man.
Oh man, I was like, no, I did not.
You know that when you fix that, it automatically, I didn't even have to delete it, fixed it for
Yeah.
some reason. I'd already posted that, and yeah, dude,
Where
I've
do you
been
see
called a lot
where do you
worse.
see Murfreesboro in the next 3 5 years?
Well, I see it still growing. I pray to God we don't have any sort of school shootings or mass shootings, but the way it's all, I've been in real estate for 23 years. I've been in sales all my life. So for 30 years, I've been in sales. It's all a numbers game. The
Yeah.
more people that come here, the more personalities. And I say it's for the most part, people are good in general. They're good. But you've got some rotten apples. And something's going on here. But I pray to God we never.
Go
I've
through
been
that.
to, yeah, I've been to the Citizens Academy for the Sheriff's Department and the police, the Murfreesboro Police. They do a fine job. I do not envy any first responder, whether it's a police officer, ambulance, I mean, a medical, fireman. Hey, hats off to all of them. Because think about it. And I've been on some calls with all of them. I've been on calls, and you're dealing with people who are fragile. They may have lost somebody, um, lost a job, mental illness. We could talk about mental illness.
Oh yeah. We could talk
Well,
about that all day long.
and I tell you one thing I admire about the sheriffs and the city. I think Chief Bowen, they're sending counselor. I think it's important. My grandfather was a sheriff here for 10 or 12 years in the 50s and 60s, and he was a road superintendent in the 70s. And my father was a county commissioner and the chairman of the county commission in the 70s and 80s. So there was a Wilson in office 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I literally grew up at the courthouse and the jail. Me and my younger brother would be running around the courthouse. The county commission would be meeting, and they'd have to stop the meeting and say the Wilson boys somebody needs to come get them, because we were little hellions. But the thing is, um, I pray to the Lord that we never have a school shooting or Walmart shooting or just shooting in general. And I'm not a big gun person. I believe in the Second Amendment, and I carry, but there's somebody who is not gets a hold of a cannon.
Yeah.
Again, I'm pro too. But the fact is, you don't ever know. It could be at church, it could be at Woodfins, it could be at Jeans and Air, Scales, it could be anywhere. But as a society as a whole, you honk your horn sometimes. I got a brother, well, I know people that have those horns, sounds like a tugboat horn. I'm like, don't do that. The things that you used to do, you can't do it anymore. Because
That is the truth.
they will shoot you. They will
Hmm.
shoot you. People, and I hate to be like the boy who cried wolf or whatever. I told you so. But I can remember in high school, we would go 3:30. We're going dove hunting. I grew up on a farm, and all my buddies, they were all gun. I fish. I'm not gonna kill. If I want something to eat meat, I'll go to Tags or something. Cut me a piece of. I'm lazy too, naturally, but people, we would carry our shotguns in the back of our trucks, and at 3:30 we were going dove hunting. I'm talking about on school ground. It's crazy. Now I try to do that, but I think there's going to be a point where we're going to have to, and I hate to see it. Well, your wife, God bless her for being a commissioner,
School
she's
board.
a school board. Yeah, I think there'll be a time you either have to put a precinct close to the schools, in the school. They already have SRO officers, but how many? Are you going to put a fence around the schools where they're like a prison? Or, and I thought this was a kind of a neat idea. You know, those tornado shelters, I think you'll probably see those in elementary schools where they put them in classrooms where if there's a shooting, you know, God forbid the one that happened in Texas where it was a fiasco, but kids can get in a tornado shelter, lock it until it passes. That's maybe one way. And then you've had some people say, well, give the teachers guns. Well, don't, you know what?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good idea or not, because teachers, say if they have a bad day and I'm just saying.
You know, I was watching the news.
Huh?
I was watching, I think it was Channel 2 or Channel 5. One of them was conducting an investigation in Nashville for the schools there, that they had some type of security equipment that they had and they weren't using. It was like up to date. And I'm like, there has to be security equipment that you can install that would detect all this. And talking about that, like, there's so many kids coming into Rutherford County that its space is like, they're just busting at the seams.
Yeah, I mean, we're building schools left and right. But you know what? I'd rather build schools than prisons.
That is
That
true.
makes sense. If you open up the prison system, I'm going to say 80 to 90%. If we just went out to Rutherford County or the state prison and opened up, say there's 2,000 people, I'm going to say 1,500 of those were probably under the influence of a narcotic, alcohol, something. They were on something, or they're in the process of getting something so they could, you know, their addiction or whatever, or mental illness. And it starts with, I think it starts with education at home as little ones. And sometimes you don't. I was fortunate to have my mom and dad. Well, actually, my mom, she never worked. My dad, you know, he was a State Farm agent here. And we didn't have, we never hurt for anything, but I mean, we weren't rich. But mother stayed home, took care of the kids. Dad but it's gone from that. There's, you know, there's kids having kids. But it starts with education, and then it goes from there. But it starts in the household.
Yeah, that's true.
I sat on the board one time for a group called Team to Tots, and we helped. And this was 6-7 years ago. A guy named Brian and Autumn Hargrove. This would be something good for you to check into or to get started again. But there was 2,500 to 3,000 homeless children in Rutherford County. That means they don't live, not all of them live under a bridge, but they couch surf with friends. It's not their fault. You know, it's not the kids' fault. Or they're at the Regal Inn, or they're at some seedy hotel, and that's the way. Or they're in the back behind Cracker Barrel. They're homeless. To me, if we're living in a rich society, I mean, the poorest people here, if you go to a third world country,
oh yeah,
they're the richest. I mean, but there's no reason why. I think if you're able to work, you need to work.
It's crazy,
yeah,
that we have a problem with homeless children. And I was just talking with a gentleman named Noah today at Starbucks. And
Noah
he's a real estate agent.
That's Noah. Yeah, he's a friend of mine. He's a good guy.
Yes. I actually told him, I said, hey, I'm going to be interviewing Bill Wilson tonight at 6. And so he is he's going to be watching the video on YouTube and the link. Yeah. But you know,
it's a good one.
I think this was maybe a few days before Thanksgiving. And I spend about 3 to 4 hours a day on social media, not just to be on there, but looking to connect to people that are doing incredible things. Number one, guest for the podcast, Number two, connections for nonprofit, how we can communicate and collaborate. But I saw Noah
feeding the homeless.
Yes.
I was with him. It was at the in-town suites.
Yes.
And I'll tell you who had that up was Holly.
Yes.
James Haley. Stevie Savisa helped us out. And then Jordan Ferguson, who's a defensive lineman, number 9 for MTSU.
Yes.
5th-year senior. That's his project. That's his foundation is a World Hands. And it's an outreach of feeding homeless children. And I think we put together about 300 meals. Well, I didn't do it. I just helped. I was there entertaining to help get it out there and to help with the children and stuff. But that's what needs. That was
incredible.
To be more, that's what needs to happen is have people helping people.
Yeah, and I met with Noah today, and we talked for about an hour and 20 minutes. And it's just heartbreaking that I tell people, so many people are moving to Middle Tennessee. Nashville's busting at the seams, a lot of money and revenues coming in. But with the increase in revenue is the increase of crime, poverty. And it's like, we don't realize here in Murfreesboro, we got homeless children.
Yes. And it's not their fault. So it's bad. Man. But Jordan Ferguson is and he'll be in the NFL one day. You mark my word. He's got the athletic ability, but his mind's right. And
he doesn't forget where he came from.
No, he's from Atlanta, and I got to meet his whole family, his mom, his grandma, all of his just great people. And they drove up from Atlanta on Thanksgiving, put all the meals together. This was his thing. Holly got me involved in it, and then we got Stevie and Noah and different ones. We just all collaborated. You should have seen the kids. They were, and they're adults too. It was about the children, but everybody ate that day that we were around. And it's not about glorifying us. It's about glorifying the Lord, and He works through us. We're just
Bill,
just a vessel.
I'm so hungry and passionate and driven to change my world that I live in, my community, to help those that are in need, especially young people. So many young people, they turn 18, they don't even know what to do.
No.
And it's like mentorship, a lack of mentorship, a lack of adults or organizations that are willing to get dirty, roll their sleeves up, and get some financial literacy classes going, some entrepreneurship classes going.
Yeah.
And really point these kids in the right direction, because it's just energy that they don't know what to do with. And so they just let it out. And a lot of times it's comes out negative where
they rebel.
Yeah.
Greenhouse Ministries, another one Greenhouse Ministries, that's Cliff Sharp and Mrs. Sharp up on Academy. They just opened a new building, and they teach people how to cook, prepare food, how to balance the checkbook, basics.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do, is get back to the basics.
Yeah.
But we're so into, and I'm guilty. Hey, this here has been a blessing, but it's also can be a curse. My son's 22, and hopefully he's going to graduate here in a few weeks. But when I was a kid growing up, we had pen pals. We had to take a legal pad of paper with a pencil, and I'd write a note or write a story and send it to my pen pal who lived in Montana. And then 30 days later, I go to the mailbox, and there's a letter from that person with their picture. That was Facebook. It took sometimes 30 days to get a letter back. We've lost all that. That's
Yeah.
called being personal. Now it's just click, enter. Let me see how many likes I've got. I'm guilty. Guilty.
Yeah.
But the one-on-one, this is the way I like to do it. Look people in the eye, shake their hands, and then you can feel their soul sometimes. I mean, I have a way of reading people, whether they've been through hard times. Hey, Dusty Rhodes used to say hard times. You need to YouTube hard times, Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
WWE.
Yeah. Well,
that goes back further.
Yeah, Dutchman. If we can talk about this after the show, but I can definitely get you some guests that people like. You ever heard of Dirty Dutch Mantel?
Yep.
He's a friend. I know that he would do it, but man, I tell you what, I'm glad that you have the energy and you have the passion. We need more younger folks that think more about others than themselves.
Yeah,
I'm gonna get mine society. It's me society. I like some of me. That's the way it's gotten, and I hate to say that. It's sad, very sad. But there's hope.
There is.
Because if you hit a bottom, everybody's at some time in their life will hit a bottom, like right here.
Mm-hmm.
There's only two ways you can go when you're on bottom: up or sideways, and stay on the bottom. So it's time to make a difference and press on. It's what the Lord says, press on.
Yeah, there's so much incredible things happening here. And I think a lot of times people just don't take the time to look for that. And for people to connect with you, because you've brought so much value this evening, and I'm just like, wow, I'm sitting here like dumbfounded. I'm like, man. And, it's one of those things where I have a passion as well to sit down with older people and talk about the, sometimes the Great Depression or how things used to be. And just the stories that I hear, I could listen to them for hours.
Sure.
And there's so much richness in those stories. For people that are moving here from other states, people that are watching, listening, how do they connect with you on social media or radio? I know every evening.
Every Sunday night, the Mr. Murfreesboro shows on WGNS at 9:00. I have a co-host, Kelsey Williams. It's 1450 AM and 100.5 FM talk radio. And then we're live on Facebook. It's also a podcast. Did you get that podcast I sent you from
I did.
Man, it was really something. We had over the phone. It was like a Jerry Lewis telethon. That wheelchair was lit up, man. It was really something. And we talked about the VA golf course shutting down, Jazz Fest shutting down, the amphitheater where it's going to be built. So that's a whole different topic or different show. But I also do a ride. Are you familiar with the Murfreesboro Pulse?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I have a little article Meredith helps me out with, my partner, Meredith Thomas. It's called the Mr. Murfreesboro Minute. Last month, it was about being thankful. This month, it's going to be about Christmas, old Christmas traditions here in Murfreesboro. And I can tell you one of them is the old talking Christmas tree at Harvey's. And that's one of them. I don't want to give it all. I don't want to spill it all right now because you won't go pick up But pick up a Murfreesboro Pulse. You can get it at Junior's, Toots, I think maybe Walmart, anywhere you see a VIP magazine. Carrie Beth Catron does a great job with VIP. But you can pick up a Murfreesboro Pulse. Dude, it's a nice little paper because it's local. There's no more local paper here. The D&J, I mean, the Murfreesboro Post is local. The D&J used to be the only gig in town for news, but it's about stuff and not even local. So I encourage everybody to pick up a Murfreesboro Pulse and get behind them because they've got some great articles. I'm not the only show in town. There's stuff in there. There's a calendar, events going on. If you want to know what's going on, you can go to their website too. But if you want to get in touch with me, you can go to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and just type in Mr. MR period Murfreesboro. And we just eclipsed on Facebook 25,000 followers. I think on Instagram 20,000. And then I think we're all together. I'm over 55,000, something like that. If I put them all together, I never thought it was going to be like this. I do enjoy. I love people and collaborating like what we're doing. And I'll have you on my show. But yeah, I just like telling the story, man.
It'd be cool to just talk nonprofit work and community service. We get, actually in my garage, I have quite a bit of school supplies that I'm going to be giving to some of the schools that we partner with. And just this evening, I had a friend drop off a minivan load of stuff, diapers and wet ones, clothes, big old box of socks, men's underwear, hygiene products.
Do you have any XLs? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Some of our board members, what was that?
I say good for you. See, you're making a difference. Is what you're doing.
Yeah. We're going to go downtown to Veteran War Memorial. We've been down there, I think, once or twice, and we're going to give out socks and underclothes and hygiene products. And then partnering, we support Apollo Middle School, Smith Springs, Paragon Mills.
In Nashville?
That's in Antioch. Yeah, we've been working with them for quite a while. Good. But then here in Rutherford, we've expanded last year, even before my wife ran for school board, with Blackman High School, Rocky Fork Middle, and Blackman Elementary. And so we're just looking to increase that in 2023 because there's so many kids out there that need, so many families that are in need.
They need attention.
Yeah.
And know that people care for them.
Yeah.
And they're not alone.
And that's what caught my attention with Noah. I was like, wow. I mean, it was like so loud, the post, the content, that I had to just stop and dig into it.
Yeah. You talking about the one about feeding the children?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was good. It was great. And you know what? It's even better. It's what the Lord would have us do. But it gets you out of yourself to where you're not worried about your bank account. You're worried about what people are thinking of you, or what this, that, and the other. You're doing good. You're helping others.
I heard a saying. It says when you start to give, you find out how much more you can give.
It doesn't always have to be about money. It's doing the things like you're doing, clothing, or just spending time with somebody.
Yeah.
You'll never get time back.
Exactly. And, a plug for our nonprofit, it's called Break Thru Nashville. Some of us, we're talking about, okay, wait, it needs to be breakthrough because we're breaking into Rutherford County. But
Yeah,
Breakthrough Nashville, we're on Instagram, Facebook, still trying to learn the whole TikTok thing.
I'll
Um,
share it. I'll get you a plug.
yeah, so it's just we got a lot that we want to do, and there's so much need in Rutherford County, Davidson County, and other counties.
Another good nonprofit is Read to Succeed. Jolene Randotti. I used to sit on that board, and that's where they teach children and adults how to read. Books. I sit on the board for the Rutherford County Recovery Court Foundation. I've been in recovery. I've been without a drink for 31 years, and I can understand the addiction and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't realize how that affects the family when somebody's strung out or drunk or whatever. There's children, spouses, friends, and people don't realize the money that the lost wages when we have to put them in jail.
Oh
We
yeah,
have
that's so
to
true.
jail, lost wages. I mean, it's, and it's the individual.
Taxpayer dollars.
Oh, it's unreal the amount.
Yeah.
Unreal. But yeah, we just got to keep doing good, man.
Well, Bill, I am so excited that we had this time this evening just to
Right on.
chat.
And thanks for having me. It looks like it all went good, and I just tell you to keep doing what you're doing and keep looking forward, man. That's why the
Yes,
windshield is a lot bigger than the rear view
the
mirror.
river near.
You want to look back, take your
If you look,
inventory,
yeah,
but pressing forward.
exactly.
And keep the Lord number one. It'll all
Definitely.
work out. Yeah.
Well, for
Thanks.
those that are watching on YouTube and those of you that are listening to our podcast, I want to thank Bill Wilson, aka Mr. Murfreesboro. And after you listen to this podcast and watch this video, you're going to understand why Bill is Mr. Murfreesboro. And make sure that you connect and follow Mr. Murfreesboro on Instagram, Facebook. Check out the website, dig in, find out what you can do, how you can support Mr. Murfreesboro, and even sponsors, right, for the radio station, right?
I'm a realtor by trade. I am a real estate agent for the last 23 years. I do real estate, done it. So I had to give me a little plug on that too. But
so those that are moving here, like you are the man. Like if anyone knows,
I know Murfreesboro better than anybody.
Yeah.
Period. I'm not trying to brag, but
no, you know a lot.
I know, but again, it's about people.
How do they connect with you for real estate?
Well, 615-406-5872. And then I have Team Burrow on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, if you know somebody looking, I'm right here. Right now, the market's kind of slow. It's kind of changed a little bit. That's a whole different show. But people still have to have houses and places to live, and I can help you get into things. I can get you into a house and know who's selling. The key is like knowing people before they put it on the market.
That is so true.
That's the way you had to know somebody before it goes on the market, because this market's been so volatile. People, I'll tell you, the business to be in right now is to be a repairman. All those people that bought homes the last 3 years during this gold rush, who bought homes without doing inspections, they pay cash, $50,000 or whatever. A lot of those systems are going to start breaking down, like your plumbing, your central heat and air, things like that. If you're a handyman, get ready, because you're going to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a prediction.
No, that is true.
As long as we don't go back to 2007, 2008, we're going to be fine. People are saying, oh, we're this, that, and the other.
I don't see that.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
When I started, the interest rate was between 8 and 9%. It was unheard of to be at 2 to 3% the way it was a couple of years ago. And maybe even last year, 2.75. I mean, they were giving money away.
Mm-hmm.
In 2007, I'd go to a closing, people are getting money back. I'm like, how is this going on? You know, when you're spending $300,000 or $400,000 on a home, you're supposed to be putting money in.
I think that's the other really.
Part of it's our fault. Part of it's the consumer's fault.
Yeah, I think that's the other reason why Middle Tennessee is a really good place to move to, is because not the infrastructure, but the industries are major industries that help keep our economy afloat.
Like Nissan.
Yes.
Think of all the jobs that spin off from Nissan. The ones that build the or whatever they build to go into the cars. There's thousands of jobs. So that's just one example. The VA.
Yeah, there's so much.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. I've had really a good time, and I'm humbled that you would have me on here, and I really appreciate it.
I'm humbled that you accepted the invitation.
Yeah, man.
For those of you that are watching and listening, make sure that you reach out and follow Mr. Murfreesboro on Instagram, Facebook. Check out the website, the paper, Murfreesboro Minute.
Yeah.
And get involved in a lot of the community activities that are happening. There's so much rich culture and history here that you can check out on the weekends. So much to do, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. And most of the time it's free.
Right.
And so, Bill, thank you again for accepting my invitation, being a guest. I've learned so much value was added. And I want to say thank you.
Thank you, brother.